Kansas is suing Pfizer over how it marketed its COVID-19 vaccine.
In the lawsuit, Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach alleges the vaccine maker misled the public about the risk of the shot. He also says Pfizer suggested the shot stopped the spread of COVID, then said it never studied if it actually did or not. Kobach says the lawsuit comes down to Pfizer allegedly withholding information and deceiving the public, and says companies are obligated to be honest.
And our Kansas Consumer Protection Act is all about that. It's about you do not deceive consumers. And you especially must not deceive consumers when consumers are making an urgent, frantic decision believing that their life might be on the line.
Kansas is the first state of several to file a suit.
Kansas Attorney General is now suing Pfizer for what he says are misleading claims the company made about its COVID-19 vaccine. Chris Kobach accuses the pharmaceutical company of lying when it called its vaccine safe and effective. He cites reported risks of causing specific heart conditions and pregnancy issues. He also claims Pfizer lied about the vaccine's effectiveness in the long term and against COVID variants.
This lawsuit is simply about withholding, misleading, and deceiving the public. A company has a high obligation to be honest with Americans in any situation. And our Kansas Consumer Protection Act is all about that. It's about you do not deceive consumers.
Kobach also accused the company of working to censor negative social media surrounding its vaccine.
Big claims today from Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach. He's accusing the pharmaceutical company Pfizer of falsely marketing and misleading Kansans about its COVID-19 vaccine. Let's get to 12 News digital anchor Keith Grant with those details. Keith.
Christy, today, Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach claimed Pfizer lied about the safety and effectiveness of its COVID-19 vaccine. He alleges that Pfizer's claims about the vaccine being safe for pregnant women and that it doesn't cause heart conditions are false. The Attorney General also accuses the drug maker lied about the vaccine's effectiveness.
In such an environment, it is imperative that Kansans making that decision receive the truth. They needed the truth. All Americans needed the truth. And in multiple respects, Pfizer did not provide the truth.
Kobach's lawsuit comes after the Texas Attorney General filed a similar lawsuit against Pfizer last year.
Kansas now suing Pfizer, claiming the company misrepresented its COVID-19 vaccine, putting the health of Americans at risk, specifically pregnant women.
Yeah, tonight the pharmaceutical company is responding. Fox 31's Talia Cunningham brings us up to speed on both sides. Talia.
Well, Erica, good evening. The 69-page civil suit was filed just yesterday by the state's Attorney General, Chris Kobach, and it alleges that Pfizer violated the Consumer Protection Act by marketing the vaccine as safe, even though the company knew it was connected to serious adverse reactions, then misleading the public. That suit states that during the pandemic, 60% of Kansas residents received the Pfizer vaccine, misleading them to believe their vaccine was safe for certain users, including pregnant women and people with specific heart issues. So in Kobach's complaint, a 2021 Pfizer report shows that of the 458 pregnant women who got that Pfizer vaccine, more than half of them had an adverse event and more than 10% reported miscarriages. Kobach believes that Pfizer knowingly withheld information regarding serious side effects in a time when vaccinating yourself from COVID-19 seemed like a life or death choice for some and their unborn children.
The company has a high obligation to be honest with Americans. You do not deceive consumers. And you especially must not deceive consumers when consumers are making an urgent, frantic decision believing that their life might be on the line. Today, Kansas is filing a civil suit against the Pfizer Corporation under the Kansas Consumer Protection Act, seeking enhanced civil monetary penalties, damages, and injunctive relief for misleading and deceptive statements made in marketing its COVID-19 vaccine. As we all know, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a great deal of panic and anxiety. Many people who were elderly or who suffered from various medical conditions had already died when the vaccines became available. And when that time came, when the vaccines became available, every one of us had to make two decisions. Am I going to take the vaccine? And if so, which vaccine will I choose to take? And these decisions were being made in a hurry. In some ways, you could say even being made under duress. In such an environment, it is imperative that Kansans making that decision receive the truth. They needed the truth. All Americans needed the truth. And in multiple respects, Pfizer did not provide the truth. Pfizer marketed its vaccine as safe for pregnant women. However, in February of 2021, Pfizer possessed reports for 458 pregnant women who received Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine during pregnancy. More than half of the pregnant women reported an adverse event, and more than 10% reported a miscarriage, many within days of the vaccination. Pfizer also possessed information from its own October 2020 study on pregnancy in rats, indicating that its COVID-19 vaccine was likely linked to infertility, loss of litters, and stillborn offspring. Pfizer consistently denied any evidence of a connection or safety signal between its COVID-19 vaccine and myocarditis or pericarditis. Indeed, on January 18th, 2023, when asked whether its vaccine caused strokes or myocarditis, Pfizer chairman and CEO Alan Berla stated, quote, "We've not seen a single signal, although we have distributed billions of doses," end quote. A signal that he was referring to as a safety signal, which refers to a negative consequence. However, as Pfizer knew, the United States government, the United States military, foreign governments, and others had found that Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine caused myocarditis and pericarditis. Pfizer also claimed that its COVID-19 vaccine protected against COVID-19 variants, even though data available at the time showed Pfizer's vaccine was effective less than half the time against variants. Pfizer urged Americans to get vaccinated in order to protect their loved ones, clearly indicating a claim that Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccination stopped transmission of COVID-19. Pfizer later admitted that it had never even studied transmission of it after its recipients received the vaccine and whether they could say it stopped transmission. After making these misleading statements, Pfizer also engaged in some censorship attempts. Emails reveal that Pfizer officials coordinated with social media platforms to censor any speech critical of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine safety and effectiveness. Pfizer's misleading statements contributed to success in marketing its vaccine in Kansas. By February of 2024, Pfizer had delivered over 3.3 million doses of its vaccine in the state of Kansas. This accounted for over 60% of all vaccine doses given in the state of Kansas. This suit is being filed today, and as I mentioned before, it is part of a multi-state effort in which more suits may follow.
Well, the state of Kansas hitting the big pharma's Pfizer with a lawsuit, claiming the company, quote, misled the public that it had a safe and effective COVID-19 vaccine, even though it knew it was connected to serious adverse events. I'm quoting there. It hid that information from the public.
Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach says that Pfizer violated the state's Consumer Protection Act, and he joins us now. It's so great to have you on the program to talk about this finally. All these years after, there were vaccine mandates, and that was something that this, administration really pushed hard. For us, for those of us who wanted to come to work and weren't necessarily on board, you had to get a shot or you couldn't make a living. So there's a lot at stake here, and I want you to just kind of lay out the case that you're making.
Yeah, you present a great scenario. Some employers mandated the vaccine. Other people had to make a decision whether they wanted to get the vaccine or not. And when people made that decision to get the vaccine, then they had to make a choice. And people made that choice very quickly with anxiety. Many people who chose to get the vaccine did so sensing that it was urgent and they had to do it for their own safety. And in that situation, it was crucial that the pharmaceutical companies speak truthfully and present all information that they have. And this consumer protection suit against Pfizer is based on the fact that they had information that was contrary to what they were saying publicly. And I can just give you two examples. One is for pregnant women. Pfizer stated and advertised that it was that the vaccine was safe for pregnant women. But as early as October of 2020, they had evidence from a study that they did on rats showing real complications for pregnancy. And then in February of 2021, they had information from 458 women who took the Pfizer vaccine, and the majority of them had complications relating to pregnancy. And then the other one is myocarditis. The CEO of Pfizer publicly stated that there was no link between any myocarditis and the COVID vaccine, when in fact they knew that there was a link. So
it's, the bottom line is people can't be lied to. And this suit isn't about, someone suing the company.
Forgive me, AG, but didn't the federal government essentially give them the golden keys of immunity from prosecution when developing not just Pfizer, but all the pharma companies that were working together? I'm just wondering if we should be suing the federal government instead of Pfizer because they were given this free, easy way to make money, not having to worry about lawsuits.
Well, one could certainly argue that the federal government's hands weren't clean either, but the federal government did give them immunity from suits, from tort lawsuits, from a person who was injured from the vaccine suing the company. However, the federal government did not give them liability if they committed a deceptive or misleading practice in advertising their product to consumers, and that's what the basis of this suit is.